We're going to carve a hand. So let's talk about the basic references. And you see, this is Marv Kaisersatt's pattern, and you can see that it says handy reference. So all of this section at the top of your handout is all the references. And the first thing that you're going to see is that the hand can be divided very simply. So the distance from the wrist to the extreme point of the finger, divide that distance in half, and that part there is equal to that part there. Okay? So if you look at the top here, in the top view, the same thing applies. So the A here and the A here are the same. And the distance from here to here, in other words, the width of the hand, is an A as well. So the distance, so if you look at my hand here, this distance is equal to this distance is equal to this distance. So the three are all the same. All right. So it's very easy then to start to carve it when you start to understand the basics of it. The other point I want to make here is the thumb. The thumb obviously does not extend to the end of the fingers, but it does go past that major knuckle joint. Here, see where the thumb extends beyond? Okay? And the thumb works at a 90-degree angle from the fingers. In other words, the fingers bend this way, the thumb bends this way. Okay? So when we go to carve something, carve this hand, which is the next step, we're going to go and notice that there's step number 1, step number 2, and step number 3. And we're going to do it exactly in that order. Marv Kaisersatt is just a marvelous designer and can simplify things so much easier. So what we're going to do is, you can see the distance was divided in half. Okay, so roughly the width of the hand and the two divisions here are going to be the same. This is an inch block that you got, so you're going to end up with a division that is 1 inch, 1 inch, and the width is going to be 1 inch as well. But keep in mind that this is a right hand. Notice at the top it says the right hand. Now the size of the block that I've chosen here, a 1-inch block, is a little bit larger than what you would have in a normal caricature carving, but it'll help you design it and hopefully give you a reference so that you'll be able to do it again in the future. So what we're going to do is we're going to first of all divide those distances in half, and I'll set that up and then I'll come back. Okay, so there it is, top view, and I've duplicated what this design here is. So see where it says waist on the design? So we're going to take a little bit out of here. That creates the wrist on both sides, then create a slope on the front. So we're going to remove those hunks out there. So I would do that with a combination of a V-tool and a knife, and it'd be straight up and down cuts. Okay. Okay, so step 1 was taking off the 4 pieces to establish the shape looking straight down. Now we've got to create the back of the hand. So step number 2 is from the center point of the back of the hand back towards the wrist. We got to remove that wedge out of there, and likewise to the front. So you're creating that shape. You're creating this shape and this shape. All right, so draw it on so that it looks something like that. Use your V-tool to cut across there to get a stop cut. Get that plane established, get this plane established. So there's the shape that we're going to end up with. Is off the top, we're going to create that shape with the hump in the back. Hump in the back is roughly where the knuckles are going to be. So the next step, if you look at step number 3, you'll see that there's going to be a flat spot down the middle, and we're going to remove material on both sides to create the curvature of the back of the hand. So from the end view, you can see that you knock off a little bit off of each side. So I've tried to illustrate that with the lines on the top, more particularly on the edge. We want to get from the top down and create a bevel on both sides. And that's the next step. Talk about step number 4. So what we've got is we've established the shape on the, first of all, getting the shape on straight up and down, then we establish the shape this way, and then we establish the shape this way. So now we have to get rid of the material that doesn't count. First thing you have to realize is that the back of the hand, the knuckles curve around on a slight angle. So from that center point here, we got to create a curvature on the back of the hand. So that's the curvature. Next, we have to decide on where the thumb is going to be. So as you can see, the hand starts to narrow down. The hand starts to narrow down as it goes towards the end. So that, by removing the hunk of wood in here, we can create that area for the thumb. So notice how the thumb is down with respect to the fingers. So in order to get this thumb relieved, we have to remove this hunk of wood in here. And that's what is identified in this diagram here. So it starts rough, just past halfway from the wrist out. And that's pretty much where it is on my hand as well. And I'm going to continue that right down to the end. So it looks something like that. So this piece here has to come out, but it doesn't come out very far down. See how the thumb is created in there? So we're going to have to remove a bit of the material, but leave this material in here. Leave this material in here for the thumb. So we're only going to take out this wedge in here. All right. Okay, so there we go. We've got the top part of the thumb established. So if you go to, we're going to come back to the fingers in a minute, but we're going to move on to step number 5. So step number 5 is we want to get rid of that little notch there for the wrist. So we got to get rid of the notch in here, and then we got to cut off the end of the thumb. So the thumb extends past, if you look at my hand, the thumb extends past this first set of knuckles, but doesn't come as far now as the second set of knuckles. So it extends a little bit further. So you have to remove this hunk of wood that's going to be at the end here. So guesstimate where that is. Now everybody's thumb is going to be a little bit different. So I'm going to guesstimate it at that. So I'm going to remove this piece of wood here up to the edge of the fingers. Up to the edge of the fingers, okay? And I'm going to remove this hunk back here. Now you got to leave this piece in here because see the amount of muscle that you've got in here, it has to be maintained. There it is, that's a better view. Okay, and you can see that it's going to have to be incorporated in here. Eventually we'll create the edge of the thumb.
Is that straight across, or is that just that one little corner?
Right here, you mean?
No, the other piece.
Back here?
Yeah.
At the back?
Yeah.
Okay, we're just going to create that same notch as if we did the same at the top.
Yeah.
There's what it looks like when it's set up. Your thumb can be whatever shape because your thumb is very mobile. It can be in a bunch of different shapes, but typically we're gonna mark it this way on. So we have to create some hollows now. The hollow is in here and in here, and you can see that in the diagram. See the dotted line there on both sides? So whatever width you decide on your thumb. Notice though that your thumb is wider obviously than your fingers. So what we want to do is we want to create these two hollows here. So I'm going to pick a gouge. This happens to be a 10 millimeter number 7, and I'm going to create my circles, my hollows in here, and start to create the shape of my thumb. All right, so it's just going to be a stop cut pushed in and then remove some of the material. Okay, let's talk now. We've got the thumb set up so that it's roughly there. And now we're going to go back to this number 4, and we're going to divide up the fingers. A couple of things to point out about the fingers. The knuckle joint is there, and the cut for the fingers, the separation for the fingers, is in front of the knuckle joint. I don't know how many hands I've seen so that the cut is too far into the knuckle joint. So it's in front of the knuckle joints is where the fingers are divided. In the diagram, you'll see that more or less the fingers are all the same width, but the lengths vary. So we're going to do exactly the same thing. So the easiest way to divide the fingers is to divide the width in half and draw a line. So there is approximately halfway in between. So now you've got to divide that distance on each side in half to create the fingers. Does that make sense? So we're going to divide the width in half, then divide the next distance in half, and then this distance in half to create the 4 fingers. We've got 4 fingers and a thumb. Unless you're Anne Boleyn, and then she's got an extra finger. Okay, well that's the trick is to divide them first. Okay, we'll hold it there until you get them all divided. Okay, so assuming you've got them divided, now what I don't do is I don't put a knife cut in there. I use a V-tool, and so I'm going to use a V-tool, and I'm going to start in front of the knuckles with my cut or my separation. So I'm going to follow down that line with my V-tool. I'm going to establish that. I'm going to go to the next one, establish that one. And the reason why I use a V-tool as opposed to a knife commits you to that location. So now if you look at it, as in this case here, that middle finger, that obscene finger, could be a little bit wider. So now I can go back in and I can move that over, starting with the small finger, and move each finger over just a little bit to get a more equal division. Once I'm satisfied with that each finger is the correct width, then I'll put my knife cut in. I'll go ahead and do that. So that's a pretty good view there of the width of the fingers. You can see that the fingers are more or less the same width. So now, as you can see in the diagram, now we have to shorten the fingers. So we're going to make obviously this finger here is going to be longer. The first finger, we'll call that's the first finger, is a little bit shorter. The third finger is going to be back in a little bit, and of course the little finger is back even further. So let's establish them. First of all, I'm going to establish that, make this finger just a little bit shorter than this finger here. And then this finger here is going to be quite a bit shorter. And as you can see by my hand, oops, okay, and as you bend your finger, as you bend that hand, as you bend that hand, the fingers take a little bit different shape again. So you can play around with this basic design. Now we got to remove some wood, so we're going to remove the wood on the ends of each one of these fingers. And I'll use a combination of gouge and a V-tool to remove. So it looks something like that. So you can see that this finger is the longest finger, and then the first finger is a little bit shorter, this one's a little bit shorter, and then my little finger is a little bit shorter more than that. And it looks maybe that this is a little bit too short, but eventually I'm going to have them on different levels, so I'm going to knock them down on different levels so that they have a different shape again. Okay, so we've got it divided into the various fingers, and I would go over it again with a sharp knife and create your divisions. Make sure you're satisfied with the divisions being equal, and then I'm going to use a number 7 gouge, which is 6 millimeters, but it can be a little bit flatter. But then start and work the gouge upside down. Let me go wider here. Work the gouge upside down, and starting from the outside, working your way in, you can start dividing those fingers. So there's one finger, there's the next finger, and then of course leave the top one in the same spot, and then this outside finger can be divided. So you're creating steps.
Yeah.
So you have your curved side up on your gouge, do you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So then you can put that step you want.
You can get it whatever shape you want then. So can you see that the divisions are in different levels now? I would likely knock this little finger down even a little bit more. So you get your steps going down so that it looks something like that. So right away you've got your fingers divided. The only thing left after that is to give them the shapes. So once again, whenever you carve the outside of the whatever the carving is, and then you give it detail after that by carving out the inside. But get all the shape on the outside first. Does that make everybody happy with that? And once again, it starts from the knuckle joint, and just in front of the knuckle joint, and you work your way down. Okay?